Good morning, everybody. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., and welcome to 2018. We are at our Department of Forensic Sciences, where we, members of our public safety team, will provide an update on our public safety activity in 2017, our look ahead, and we'll be able to answer a few questions. I'm joined by the Director of the Department of Forensic Sciences, Dr. Jenifer Smith, whose team works in this building, as well as Dr. Roger Mitchell, who is our Chief Medical Examiner, and his team also works in this building. Deputy Mayor Kevin Donahue, who's responsible for public safety and justice in the district, as well as Peter Newsham, who is our Chief of Police. Let me just start with a few numbers. We, in 2017, were down 27% year to year from 2017 to 2016 in robberies, which is a very significant decrease. We were down 18% with assaults with dangerous weapons from 2017 from 2016, a decrease of 14% in homicides, and a decrease in 15% in sexual assaults. These are very significant achievements, certainly, but none of us are satisfied with any level of violent crime in our city, and we're very focused on the tools that we need to continue to drive down those numbers. Today, we want to talk a little bit about what DFS does to ensure that we are driving down those numbers. Let me just say another number that I'm very proud of, that DFS officials have been able to eliminate the backlog in testing rape kits in the district and improve turnaround time of sexual assault kits collected by the district. So I want to thank the entire team for their focus on making sure we are finding and convicting sex offenders in our city. DFS has also committed to a series of improvements across the agency, including better and more focus on fingerprints and firearms forensics. And Dr. Smith will tell you a little bit more about that. And actually, I think we're going to be able to see, following our remarks, some demonstration of the work that they do with fingerprints and firearms testing. The progress, of course, that we have achieved has been multifaceted, including the public agencies, the public safety agencies that I mentioned, but also other agencies in the district government, including human services, behavioral health, and our new Safer, Stronger Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. We have been focused, as you've heard the chief say many times, on the work that our Specialized Narcotics Enforcement Unit does, at the impaneled Robbery Prevention Task Force that is multi-agency and multi-government involved. We have also been very focused on how our body-worn cameras can assist us in training our police officers. We have relied on the security camera rebate program that has empowered residents to help us in crime fighting and solving crimes if they happen. We've also been very focused on recruiting and training police officers and our next cohort of police leaders. But right now, I want to start with our discussion on the Department of Forensic Sciences. You frequently hear me call them the crime lab, but the truth is they do a lot more here. But we're talking about crime today, but Dr. Smith will tell you about all the different organizations here at DFS. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Jenifer Smith.
Well, welcome everyone to the Consolidated Forensic Laboratory. Thank you, Mayor Bowser, Deputy Mayor Donahue, Chief Newsham, and of course, Dr. Mitchell. And thank you for all coming, and I'd like to recognize some of our staff who are looking on. Congratulations to all of you too. So we're very excited to have this opportunity to recognize the efforts that have been made here at the department over the past 2.5 years. Efforts to engage our customers, improve our timeliness, and maintain our quality, building towards a future and helping create a much safer DC. At DFS, we now recognize that stronger science means safer streets. It's a great way to start the second day of the new year, looking back at our accomplishments, but also looking forward. 2.5 years ago, the DFS opened up communications with our stakeholders and threw out any old policies and practices that prevented engagement with these critical customers. Today, DFS remains scientifically independent, but we're no longer disengaged from our police department, our defense attorneys, prosecutors, and even federal partners like the FBI and ATF have come to applaud the gains that we have made here. DFS has become more efficient. Within all of our labs, we have improved the time it takes to deliver a result. Our faster turnaround times mean we have reduced the time it takes a scientist to examine the critical evidence and deliver their report. We set and met goals for all of our labs. For both our firearms and fingerprint labs, the target was to complete 50% of homicide and priority cases within 60 days. For 4 straight quarters last year, firearms examiners exceeded this goal and completed over 83% of these cases within 60 days. Equally impressive, our latent fingerprint lab completed over 95% of their priority cases within 60 days. Our DNA lab, the lab that was suspended, is no longer lagging in the field of DNA analysis. Our DNA lab is now leading the way, setting the example for both national and international DNA labs. And as the mayor said, unlike nearly every state in this country that has hundreds to thousands of sexual assault kits that haven't been tested and are sitting in backlog, we have no backlog here due to the efforts of our DNA unit that has reduced that backlog to 0. Additionally, this lab now examines all rape kits within 90 days, as required by our statute. DFS now fully participates in and also uses critical national database systems for firearms, fingerprints, and DNA evidence that have helped us give new leads to investigators that have identified perpetrators, linked crime scenes together, and identified sources of gun crimes for immediate disruption, investigation, and prosecution. Now, while undergoing all of this change, we did not drop our standards. Quality is still job one at DFS. In August, our DNA, firearms, and fingerprint units underwent a series of audits to assess our adherence to international and national testing standards. Both audits found no infractions. This is a dramatic improvement from 2.5 years ago. These improvements are not only due to hard work from the leadership team and all the DFS staff, but they're also a result of attention and resources from our city's leadership. Madam Mayor, your support to DFS has both been in word and deed. You have recognized the need for influx of resources, and you worked with the council to generously provide critical dollars, personnel. We're glad that you're here today so that we can personally thank you for that. Today, DFS is also in a much better place than we once were. However, we're always looking at becoming better, improving our efficiency while still maintaining our quality. So this year, we're going to implement some new software and technologies to assist our scientists. We will continue also to look for partnerships to build our capacity. And if you join our tour, we'll be showing some of that to you at the end of the speeches. At DFS, we look forward to the future, but in order to do that, we also feel a commitment to create the next generation of scientists. As a former educator, I know how important it is to make sure students are exposed as early as possible to real-world laboratories. So here at DFS, we've made a very hard, consistent effort to partner with some of our DC high schools and the University of the District of Columbia to bring their students in here for internships and for experiences so they can see what it's really like to work in this lab. We are committed to home growing the next public service scientists here in DC. And so that you can hear from one of our former interns, I'd like to introduce to you Janae Collins. She's a graduate of McKinley Tech High School. She's here on winter break from school, spending time with us, and she's going to tell you about her internship with us last year in the Public Health Lab. Janae?
Good morning. My experience with the Department of Forensic Science was great to have throughout high school. Having the opportunity to leave school early 2 days a week to arrive to a professional office and lab setting was highly exciting. I felt like a college student already living the double school work life, classes in the morning and an internship in the evening. It was the perfect position to help me gain more lab experiences as I wish to become a forensic scientist in the future. During my high school biotechnology courses, I learned to practice and perform labs based on procedures given, but DFS taught me how to conduct and execute my own research projects confidently. Between the labs and office workspace, the lab was my favorite setting. There were thrills of excitement with working with different bacteria, medias, and laboratory systems. I was just excited to even put on a lab coat and gloves. Because everything was hands-on, I really got the opportunity to demonstrate and intake everything I was learning. I remember being so intrigued afterwards that it became normal for me to share with my family and friends the knowledge passed after every session. Next to working in the lab, I had the chance to work and connect with 2 amazing mentors who guided me to conduct a successful senior project. They were welcoming and made sure it was understood we can talk to them about anything regarding school or life. That's what I enjoyed most next to my learning experiences. Every lab lesson came with a life lesson. No matter if it was related to college or stepping into adulthood, I learned something valuable. Thanks to DFS, I now dominate my lab courses in college and use their teaching methods to help my colleagues. I also use my enhanced skills of critical thinking and problem solving in my everyday life to keep training for my future career. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. Happy New Year. Very pleased to be here with the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor, Dr. Smith, Dr. Mitchell, and of course Janae, who did a great job. Can we give her a round of applause? I think that's what our future looks like. So our future's looking pretty good. Great job, Janae. So people say that DC is thriving right now and that DC is a destination city. With all of the people that are coming to live in Washington, D.C., with our population increasing, I'm pleased to announce today that crime is decreasing here in our city. So in 2017, we experienced a reduction in every single crime category for the calendar year. Our preliminary figures show a 22% reduction in reported violent crime and an 11% reduction in overall crime when compared to last year. These reductions and these numbers are some of the lowest numbers of violent crimes that we've had in our city in a very long time. I certainly want to give credit to the community, the multiple district government agencies, and our law enforcement partners who assisted with this. But I would be remiss if I didn't thank the men and women of the Metropolitan Police Department. So can we give them a round of applause? So I'm going to take a second and walk you through some of the numbers. Before I discuss our homicide numbers, I think it's really important that I extend my deepest condolences to the families who have lost somebody to violence in our city over this past year or at any time in our history. One homicide in our city is one homicide too many, and we are committed to getting to a place and a time where we don't have any homicides in the District of Columbia. With that being said, we ended the year with 116 homicides in 2017. That is down 14% from the 135 that we had in 2016, and down considerably from the 162 that we had in 2015. Our homicide unit ended the year with a 71% closure rate. That's excellent. That is several percentage points higher than cities that are similar in size to Washington, D.C. Included in the 116 homicides, we had 19 females. In 2015, we had 12, and in 2016, we had 12 females that were killed in our city. Juvenile victims, we had 7 in 2017, we had 7 in 2016, and 8 in 2015. Additional violent crime numbers that I'd like to highlight include a 27% reduction in the number of reported robberies, an 18% reduction in assaults with a dangerous weapon, and a 15% reduction in sexual abuse cases. That's an overall reduction of 22% in violent crime. Our property crime numbers show similar progress with an overall reduction of 9%, including burglaries that are down by 28%. When you talk about robberies and burglaries in our city, I think the community considers those two crimes, which are our largest numbers of crimes that we have in our city, to be the ones that are the scariest, because those are the crimes that appear to be the most random. It could be anyone's home that's broken into, or anybody who could be the victim of a robbery. To have huge reductions in those two categories is significant to the safety of our residents here in the city. And so people ask me all the time, what do we attribute our success to? First and foremost, and this is the cornerstone of American policing, is trust and legitimacy with your police department. We need to have trust and legitimacy with the community that we serve. We also need a community who takes an active role in making our community safe. And one example of this is the many people that took advantage of our camera rebate program that we have here in the city. Another component is working with a city government led by a mayor. Can we give the mayor a round of applause, please? Who's committed to have every single agency working towards less crime in our city. I can give you one example of a district agency that was instrumental in helping us close a serious homicide just last week. Was the Department of Forensic Sciences was able to do a test on a weapon that was recovered from an 18-year-old, which tied that 18-year-old was wanted for murder when we recovered the weapon, and it tied that 18-year-old into 2 other homicides in our city, and it was done with amazing speed and amazing professionalism to get that done as quickly as they did. So working with other city government agencies is one component. And from a law enforcement perspective, and you've heard me say this over and over again, it's getting illegal firearms out of our community. It's reducing the number of robberies that we have in our community, and it's appropriately dealing with repeat violent offenders that we have in the community. So that's the end of my remarks. We can take any questions that you all may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And let me just, before we go to your questions, just thank all of our teams who are here at DFS and at the Chief Medical Examiner's office. I think back 3 years when Dr. Mitchell walked me through this room, through a lot of rooms in this building. I don't even remember why I was here, but I think it was the first government agency that I visited as mayor. And I was struck then that none of the leadership was here. And a lot of the offices didn't have the number of people that they needed to do the job. So I too want to acknowledge all of the members of the council who have been supportive of our efforts over the last 3 years to finally make the investments at DFS that were needed, and acknowledge the wonderful leadership team that Dr. Smith has assembled. Thank you, Dr. Smith. And thank you, Dr. Mitchell, who was there for all of us when we were transitioning, who really led the agency until we were able to recruit Dr. Smith. So with that, we'll answer your on-topic questions first. Yes, Tom.
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. I'd ask you about the rate analysis kit. There's been a significant drop. It cleared the backlog. But why does it take 90 days? I was thinking maybe if I were a victim or someone was a victim of the rape, that 90 days seems like a very long time to test the kit.
Sure. Well, what we have, and before that we moved a piece of legislation through the council that we call SAVRA, we did not have those statutory limits on time. So that's how much time we have to do it. That doesn't mean that's how much time it takes. So I'll ask Dr. Smith to talk about what our real life experience is.
Yes, so our current turnaround time is actually less than that. It's around 62, 63 days to get results back. And DNA testing is pretty involved. It does take a time to run the test, make sure the test is analyzed. If there are complicated mixtures involved, we have to do the interpretation. So to ensure that the quality is there, it does take on average about 62 days to get those results back.
When you start one test, that one test may take up to about 60 days to get through all the steps to make sure the
to get it reviewed, reported, and everything like that, yes. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Sort of to piggyback off of that, question for Chief Newsham, sort of taking a shot in the dark here. Did you see any increases later in the year in reports of rape or sexual assault, possibly a Me Too, that kind of thing?
No, we did not. There was no considerable increase after what we saw reported nationally.
For the chief, with homicides going down, is there a predominant cause behind the homicides that did happen in this past year? And is there something that this force could?
I can talk off the top of my head. We haven't really done an analysis on the motives. That's something that we'll delve into. But it has been in recent years, it's been these disputes that are arising. And it's really the prevalence of the illegal firearms that are entered into that equation. And then somebody starts shooting, next thing you know, we can have these tragedies that occur in our community. That's why, we have focused on getting these illegal firearms out of the community. We had a very successful year in getting them out. We intend to continue to do the same thing this upcoming 2018.
Do you know roughly how many illegal guns you recovered this year?
We can get that number to you probably before the end of the press conference. Yes.
Can you talk about, while you've had this great success citywide, there are a couple of pockets you drill down into the numbers where they haven't seen this kind of reduction. Ward 5 is the only ward that's had an increase in homicide. Wards 5 and 7 had increases in property crime. So what can you say about your efforts targeting those areas where you still have work to do, or some neighborhoods where maybe you lagging? We'll see this report and feel maybe like, well, that's not my neighborhood.
Yeah, that's the day-to-day business of policing that you're getting into. I don't know how much you all know this or not, but twice a week I meet with my entire command staff down at our Joint Operations Command Center, and we discuss immediate crime trends that are occurring in our city. When we had an uptick in violence in Ward 5, we put additional police resources over there. We were able to make a couple of very significant arrests over there, and that was able to kind of quell that thing. If you look at it at the end of the year, they did have an uptick over there in Ward 5 with regards to homicides, but I feel like we were able to hold most of the folks that were responsible for that violence accountable. And that's the way we do it on a daily basis. If there's an uptick in crime in a particular community, we will move resources over into that area. We'll get the other city government agencies engaged to see if they can help, and oftentimes they do, and then you'll see it'll come back and go back down to normal.
And you mentioned, I believe you referred to the James Mayfield case last week that the forensic sciences was. Can you talk a little bit more? I mean, this is an 18-year-old who's now facing triple murders. Prosecutors have left open the possibility that there may be, or that even to that there may be more charges against him. Can you talk about just the importance of one getting him off the street and that link, being able to link into 3 murders so quickly?
Yeah, getting someone like that off the street quickly is very important, because apparently you had a person right there who was involved in very violent behavior, and there was no indication that that person was going to stop unless they were taken into custody. I think the other thing that is illustrated in that case is that how young a violent offender can be. This was an 18-year-old kid that was involved in this violence. And it also shows us here in the city how one person can be responsible for so much violence. I tell you what, I've been looking at this crime stuff for a very long time, and it is a very small group of people that are causing the violence in our community. It really is. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to try and step up our game this year coming up, is working with our federal partners, our supervision agencies in particular, to see if we can identify the people who are most likely to be involved, this small group of people, and make sure that they're not involved in violence in our community. Go ahead, Lou.
Yes, Chief. It certainly sounds impressive. You cited a 71% closure rate. Is that in 2017?
It was.
Homicides.
Yes.
One issue that I've heard expressed some deep concern in the LGBT community, there are now, that we know of, 9 unsolved murders of LGBT people since 2000. 5 are transgender women and 3 are gay men. And I called the MPD press office and asked if some of the community activists are asking whether you could
Is my press person here today? I find that very unusual, Lou, I really do. And so any information, I mean, one of the things that's very beneficial to us with cold cases in particular is to highlight those cases and get the information that we do have out to the public, because that can spur a memory, or somebody may be in a different position in their life when they see that information and come forward now where they may not have otherwise have done that. So to the extent that you're not getting that information, I'll make sure that you get it. You noted that we do have a number of transgender homicides that remain open. Most of those transgender homicides are some of our colder cases. Our more recent transgender homicides, as you know, have been closed by the Metropolitan Police Department. Yep.
Congratulations to the department on the work you do to reduce the crime. There's a historic drop. New York City has reported this year with the biggest drop since the 50s in crime.
Oh, I just got the gun numbers. 2,178. So who asked that question? Okay. That's a lot. It's way too many. I also say that's, we have recovered 2,178 guns this year. 2,178 illegal firearms have been recovered in the District of Columbia, and if you ask me, that's way too many. But I'm absolutely convinced that we have not gotten them all.
I think New York City has dropped back in the 1950s crime rate. Even Chicago has dropped. Baltimore is an outlier. Is there anything going on nationally that you deal with other police chiefs about what's happening?
I think policing is, technology has been a big deal in policing. Our ability, and I talked about the camera rebate program earlier, our ability to capture images of people that are involved in violent crimes is one of the things that I think has been most beneficial and most instrumental in us being able to close crimes. And when you close crimes, particularly crimes involving this small group of people who are committing violence in our city, the crimes start to slow down. So I think we're starting to see that in some of our bigger cities. It's the advent of technology.
There's also a worn-out phrase for community policing beyond the fight that police have with the community.
Can't underestimate how important our relationship is with the community. If you're in a police department that does not trust their police officers, you're not going to get any information. And you can go into some of the toughest neighborhoods in our city or any city, and if you have a positive relationship with the folks who live in that community, they're going to work with you. I have not gone to anywhere in this city. I go to meetings all the time. I have not gone anywhere in this city where I've heard people say that they want crime, violent crime in particular, happening in their neighborhoods. So they're just as inclined to have a positive relationship with us as we are with them. And I think that we do a pretty good job at the Metropolitan Police Department in fostering those relationships. We don't always get along with folks in the community, but 99.9% of the time we do, and I'm very proud of that. It's one of the things I'm most proud of this police department.
Well, I think what I tell my people every day is they need to be perfect. And that is a very high bar. And we also, when we aren't perfect, we are as transparent as possible about what has happened. And that's a part of our quality system. Our quality system allows us to find out when people aren't perfect. And I'm here to tell you today that every one of those people standing up here strive to be perfect every day. And my job is to create the environment where they can do that. And the mayor has helped us create that environment. But when we are not perfect, you guys will probably be the first to know, and I'm sure you'll report on it.
So in the case of Zika, we had situations where women who, let's say, were told that they did not have the virus, in fact. What's the result of that? I mean, is there any result of that? Is there these women did not have babies with stronger heads, or what can you tell us?
So actually, that isn't exactly the case. We had, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we had cases that were retested, and in those cases, there were three different results were obtained. And what we have done is we've taken a good look at what happened, what allowed that to happen, whether it was an individual's mistake, whether it was a systemic mistake. And the testing we are now doing in our public health lab, as I look at my director sitting here in the front row, again, we have tightened up our protocols, and we are doing and continuing to do testing in support of public health here in the city.
Bullets with particular weapons, and I guess
That's correct.
the U.S. Attorney's Office got concerned about that. Has the U.S. Attorney's Office got confidence in the lab now, or can you talk about that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we meet with them weekly. We talk to them about our cases as we meet with our investigators. And again, you're going to see the technology that we currently use, if you go on the tour, that was used to examine rounds that come into the building for firearms examination. Well, every day that we run our process, we are doing it according to our standards and our practices so that we do not misidentify bullets and link them with the improper weapons, yes.
Yeah.
This is going to be a big year for Metro's future and what happens in terms of funding for Metro. Governors of Virginia and Maryland come out both against the district's favorite plan, $1,000 sales tax region-wide. Is that still something you support, and how would you go about implementing that if it were only the district that does it?
The district can't do it alone. It doesn't raise enough money for the district to do it alone. The bottom line is that the authority needs $500 million every year that's bondable, that would help us leverage, borrow for the authority to achieve $1.5 billion. Anything short of that is a Band-Aid fix for the Metro. So I would hope that my colleagues want a real fix. We've been here before, a decade or so ago. The solution, the necessary solution was punted, and it's time for us to stop punting what we know the authority needs. So our expectation is to work with the authority this year on their capital plan and to fund their capital plan. Yes, especially in Maryland, where we don't have a bondable fix. My preliminary read from the Virginia solution is that it would be dedicated and bondable. So that's what we need for the entire solution.
You don't necessarily want to see everyone on the sales tax anymore.
That's the only, in my view, the most fair way for the entire region. We have a regional asset. Transit systems across the country, that's how they fund regional assets. But we will work with our partners to get to a solution. Last thing I wanted to mention, there was a question about cold cases, and I just want to acknowledge that our police department takes cold cases very seriously. And in the last year, I want to highlight the chiefs in the unit's work in solving the murder of Pamela Butler as evidence that they never forget about victims of homicide in our city, and that they will continue to work on ways to solve all homicides in our city. Thank you, everybody.